Welcome, everybody. I've been really looking forward to this week's face-to-face because, we pride ourselves on the D word in terms of making connections between our members. I mean, that's what our face-to-faces, particularly what we call the classic face-to-faces, are all about. We meet, we go into breakout rooms, we get to know each other, and then we come back and share. And that is how I met Ms. Liza Donnelly, who was on one of our, I think I was in a breakout room with her, and we got to chatting. And if my memory is correct, Liza, the way I remember it is that you sent me an email followed up with a question, I think, in some way. And I noticed in your subject header, it said cartoonist, 30 years New Yorker. And I wrote you back and saying, are you making a documentary? Um, and in fact, you were. And we, met for coffee. And then you told me that you were looking for a producer, and in particular, a woman producer, because it was about women cartoonists. I said, aha, I know the perfect person. And I put you in touch with Judith because close your ears, Judith, because you don't like you're very humble, but I think she's about as good a producer as there is working out there. Um,
That, that's
and
true, from what I know.
and so you got together, and here we are. And I hope you guys out there had a chance to see Women Laughing this week. We're really grateful that you guys made it, free for them to watch. Um, and we want to talk about what happened, how it came to be. And I want to talk also a lot about producing in general, but producing for shorts because so many of our members are making short films and they wonder how to get it funded and in particular how to get it out there once it's made. So Liza, let me start with you. You obviously have been a very successful cartoonist at the New Yorker for many years. You're an author. You include, in fact, you wrote a book about history of women's cartoonists at the New Yorker. Um, you're a lecturer. You like have a zillion people on Substack where you are very prolific. Why did you want to make a documentary? And what was your sort of initial conception of what this documentary would be?
First off, I just have to thank the D word. I have to thank Doug for having us here today, but also for really helping me make this film. I don't think without the D word, I don't think I would have known where to go. So I stumbled on you guys looking for anybody I could talk to about documentaries during the pandemic, and it was great. And then you and I, by accident, sort of connected, and it was great. So thank you, Doug. I wrote Funny Ladies in 2005 about the women cartoonists of the New Yorker, and because there were women, as you if you saw the film, you'll know there were women in 1925 drawing for the New Yorker, and then in 2017 I decided to ask the publisher if I could do a new edition because the numbers had changed with the women. There were more women drawing for the New Yorker, and so I did a follow-up edition in 2022 called Very Funny Ladies. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I'm done with that. I've written the book, and the New Yorker situation is what it is now, and it's great. Um, but I don't know. I got this idea that it had to be a documentary because I wanted more people to know about these women, um, past and present. And that's I spent the pandemic just researching and trying to figure out how to do this, taking classes at Sundance Collab, and then meeting people like you.
Did you have a strong conception of what the documentary would be, or did it just kind of come about through talking to various people?
Not
And,
not yet. I mean, I think initially I wanted it to be more about the history, but there's not really a lot of there's not there's no archives. There's no footage of these women. So the more I learned about documentaries, the more I knew I had a problem there. So it just was over time, talking to people and reading and watching videos that I thought, and thinking about the subject and thinking, well, I really want to, and I've written about present day women a lot too, and I've interviewed many of them in lots of different fields, cartoonists. And I wanted to focus on them as well, and not so much about women. Well, it is about women cartoonists and it is about the New Yorker, but it's also about women's creativity in general. So I wanted to be specific and general at the same time. And I'm married to a cartoonist too, for the New Yorker, and we used to draw with our girls when they were little, on the floor, and he would draw a certain way, and I would draw a certain way, and our girls would draw a certain way. It was a way of communicating with each other by drawing together. And I just, at some point in the process, maybe after I met Judith, I don't remember when that was, Judith, but it dawned on me that's what we should do together is draw together and draw with the contemporary women, because I know many of them pretty well too, and that was helpful. Um, and I just thought I also, one more thing, I wanted it to be slightly stylized and different, because I've seen documentaries about cartoonists, and I'm a little tired of the ones that I've seen, and I didn't want it to be the standard format. I wanted it to be a little bit off visually, a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing with cartoonists. So that good.
So, Judith, like I mean, almost the running joke here in our face-to-faces is like, when we ask what do you most need, everybody says a producer. But they don't necessarily have the money to pay a producer, certainly one of your caliber. So what is it when you first spoke with Liza, what was it about her conception of the film that made you say yes to it?
Yeah, so just before we even got into exactly the shape it was going to be, when I just heard, New Yorker cartoonist, I was, it was like half sold already, because I do love, I love films about artists, artistic process. I love films about New York. I've worked on many films about New York. It's a favorite subject of mine. I love stories about women, especially overlooked histories or forgotten histories. So there was so much in this film that I was drawn to. And then when I met Liza, it was just so interesting. I mean, I do love working with first time filmmakers, and Liza was, just coming to this after like this whole, fabulous career doing something else. And I thought that was really interesting and like frankly really really brave. It's just, as we all know, it's really hard making a documentary, and it's just hard starting from scratch. So I felt I felt like that I could really be a help. And as so many of us know on the Zoom, it's like when you're starting out, just knowing before you even get to like your story and who's going to be in the film and all the creative questions, you have all the like, you need a fiscal sponsor and a LLC maybe and a bank account, all these things. So and Liza was coming to this, and it was also just so interesting. She had been like spending all these years kind of doing these classes and coming to the D-Word, and I just admired her and everything she was doing. So after we met, I was happy to come on board and help make it happen.
I was so thrilled. I mean, I met with Doug for coffee first, and then you introduced me to Judith virtually, and then Judith and I had breakfast in the village somewhere, and she said yes immediately. I was blown away. So thank you, Judith.
Welcome.
By the way, I noticed in the chat somebody was asking about the film's availability. If you haven't seen it yet, the free link will still be live up until midnight tonight. So you have, and it's just 40 minutes. So, catch it while you can. Judith, you talked about starting from scratch, and mentioned a little bit of the business stuff, but take us through what starting from scratch actually means when you come on as a producer. How do you work, particularly with a first-time filmmaker? What's the role that you're playing? Well, in simple terms, what does a producer do? I mean, what are you?
Yeah. Well, I'll say what we did with this film, which is, it's always a little different, but, I think in our first conversations, even before we got to all the legal and business boring stuff, we did have a lot of questions, a lot of conversations about like, what would the film look like? Would it be, it wasn't definite that it would be a short right from the start. Would it be a short? Would it be a feature? Liza wanted to direct, would she direct by herself? Would there be another director? I'll talk about that in a second because we did bring on another director. Would Liza be like on camera or off camera, or how, where would her role be? So there were a lot of like creative questions right from the start that we talked through, even just early days. But then it was just getting us organized with the stuff I mentioned before, like putting up, the things in place we need: the bank account, the LLC, the fundraising strategy. And then we talked about like, the team. So Liza, at some point, I don't know if it was right from the start, but at some point, you thought of co-directing with somebody. So we talked about different people to bring on, and I'll let you talk about bringing on Kathy, since and what it would all look like. I don't know. I'm sure I'm forgetting a million things that we did at the start, but it was just shaping it and coming up with a timeline. And I don't know, Doug, what am I forgetting?
It'll come to me.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
If I think of anything, I'll write it down.
Yeah. But and just talking about who's going to be, I mean, that was a big question: is the who we were gonna feature, and and a lot of the creative questions were Liza and Kathy, of course, but we did have a lot of questions about where we were going to shoot. And all those, we ended up shooting at the Algonquin and the Society of Illustrators, which Liza can talk about. But those were a lot of, in addition to being creative questions, were a lot of like logistics in terms of how that was going to happen and the crew we needed for these kind of like pretty ambitious shoots. So yeah.
You said an interesting word, timeline. But why, what a timeline connotes that you have a finish line. Did you have a finish line in mind for like Sundance, or for, let's be done by, November, or October?
Yeah.
I mean, what was this timeline, and why did you feel the need to have a timeline?
So when we first started, Liza told me that 2025 was the 100th anniversary of the New Yorker. We thought that would be a great time to launch, and it wasn't mandatory. We didn't have to, but I think it's helpful to have a goal. And of course, when you're making a film, you have to be flexible. And if that timeline, has to shift for whatever reason, then you shift it. But I think having that goal and trying to premiere in 2025 helped us move things along. So that was the timeline we were working for. We didn't have a specific festival in mind at the start. We waited, until we got closer and knew, what kind of deadlines we could make. And at the same time, we were talking with, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, so that was our timeline, and so it was kind of broad at the start, and then another thing, a producer has to do is really keep us on track and come up with a very detailed timeline so we can make our deadlines.
Right. Another thing, and I don't want to exclude you, Liza, from the producing questions, because you're a producer on this as well. So, feel free to chime in. But the obvious question is, did you have any funding to begin with? How did you get it off the ground? And then how did you go about raising the money once you got going?
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you do it, and what materials did you use to raise the funds?
Do you want
Shall I
to?
start?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the initial funding, I put in my own money first, not very much, but enough to get us going, and got reimbursed eventually. But the first big donation we got was the Harnish Foundation, which came through my Substack. Ruth Ann Harnish had been subscribing to me, and she saw me mention the film on my Substack. And when she subscribed, I looked her up. I thought, oh my God, I didn't reach out to her or anything. I thanked her for being a founding subscriber. But as soon as I talked about the film, she wrote me privately and asked me, what is this, and give me more information. And eventually she became our first big donor. Am I right, Judith? I think that's correct.
It was our first
And
shoot. They really gave us the push to start
yeah,
shooting.
yeah, it was great.
Um,
Um, Another EP came through a connection I had at Barnard College. I was a fellow there for a year, and I sat next to Claire Newman, who I don't remember how I stayed in touch with her, but it was a matter of I wasn't really in touch with her, but I'm trying to remember now. Um, my point is that it was connections made not directly having to do with film. She became an EP. She'd never EP'd a film before, but she really wanted to EP this because it had to do with women and history and feminism and all that. So she came on board as an EP, um, and then we did a Kickstarter.
Oh, we'll get to that, and we'll get to your
Yeah,
Substack too.
yeah,
and
But what that's an interesting point. She came on as EP. EPs can play different roles on film. What did you do to make them feel part of it other than taking their money and putting it to good use? I mean, do you stay in touch with them? What do you do to make them feel a part of the team?
yeah. Judith is much better at this than I because I don't have any experience. But yes, keeping in touch with them. Go ahead, Judith.
we were, yeah, very it was very important to us to keep them in the loop. So any major milestones or news, we would keep in touch. And different EPs like to be involved in different ways. So some are really happy to give funds and not be too involved, and others, really have ideas about fundraising, and really want to be part of the team. So everyone on, in our all of our EPs were a little different that way, but uh, it's always, I think, important to have like an open conversation with them, and you don't want to take money and not have them be part of the team, because they're like in the Harness Foundation, for example. They have an initiative called Funny Girls. So humor and women are like a big part of why they like to fund films, is one of their major initiatives. So they were really excited to be part of this film. It's a initiative that teaches improv, and stand up to girls for leadership skills. So and that's another just good thing to know, I think, is finding EPs that are aligned with your film. People like to become EPs for different reasons, but uh, Harnish was a great partner, and all our EPs were wonderful. We have another producer, Natalie Seaver, who was on the team, and she brought on some EPs. So the funding came from different sources, but I think for a short, the fundraising is a little different than for a feature.
When they come on, do they expect anything from it? Do they expect any return for it? I mean, with foundations, generally not, but do they, you know, I guess that's another way of saying, did you get investors at all or seek investment money? And if not, why not?
We were open to investment, but we preferred non-recoupable funds, and we in the end did not take investment, just grants and donations. I think for a short, I mean, in general, I think, the path to profit on docs has changed so much in recent years, but for shorts it is different than for features. So yeah, we took donations, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Plus,
want to I want to mention one thing, Doug, that I forgot. My first investor, our first in, not investor, our first donor was my cousin, a woman, and she heard about it and immediately gave us $5,000. So Laura, I want to mention her for sure.
um, well, you've also, Judith, kept invest. I mean, you've had EPs that have carried over to other film projects too. So I guess that also highlights the importance of staying in touch with them.
Yeah.
But you also had a lot of success with a short, The Martha Mitchell Effect, which was nominated for an Oscar and picked up by Netflix and did very well for itself. So were there things that you learned in the process of making that short that carried over once you realized this was going to be a short? Um, or was the fact that it was Netflix on board solve many of your problems that you would otherwise have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I learned was just, um, it's a length, it's an interesting length. I mean, just from like, I think it would have been harder to kind of release a 38-minute film or 40-minute film, years ago, and now there's like more platforms for it. So, and not just festivals, it's a really nice length a 40-minute film is a great length for to have a screening followed by like an extended conversation. And it's great for online. So I think, just I think we were open a little bit during filming, but kind of we wanted to at some point decide which direction we were going to go was important. And in terms of distribution, there aren't tons of outlets for shorts, but Netflix does some, which is great, and the New Yorker does some. So at some point, we started to talk about, do we want to partner with the New Yorker? We didn't make this film with the New Yorker; it was an independent production, but would that be a good home? Obviously, it seems like a very relevant home for this film. So we started at some point in the middle of filming, having conversations with them, and they only put out shorts. So that was, thinking of where the eventual home would be was part of the process as well.
Well, you say they only put out shorts, but they're actually involved with the Marshall Curry feature that's out there.
But
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
what was your reaction when you learned about that? Um,
Yeah.
but-
A little scary. Um, I mean, they kept it under wraps. I don't know when they started but David Remnick knew about my one desire to make this film for years. He knew about it since before the pandemic and was supportive, um, verbally, of me doing it. So when we heard about the Netflix film, we were like a little blindsided, like, wait, what? But it makes sense because it's a 100th anniversary. It's all about the 100th anniversary. So
And we felt okay, that was a feature, ours was a short, and obviously ours just focused on cartoonists, and it was just one small element of the feature. Um, and by the way, Netflix actually released that film. The New Yorker obviously worked with Netflix, but it's not like a New Yorker release, it's a Netflix release. So,
the New Yorker does not make the shorts that they have on their site. They pick them up and produce, or add their name to it.
yeah, I'd argue it's not only about cartoons, it's about women cartoonists, which is actually a really, really important
yes.
aspect of it. Liza, just to get into a little bit about your work as a cartoonist, I mean, what is your relationship with the New Yorker? How does it work? I think I've heard that you do many, many drawings and cartoons a week and you submit them and they maybe pick one and maybe
Yeah,
not. Um,
yeah,
how many,
that's how
how many cartoons are you drawing a week for them in order to hopefully get one picked?
it ranges from 5 to 10, uh, rough ideas, drawn ideas a week.
And when do
And
you get, I mean, do you have a set time that you set aside and go like, okay, I'm going to pop out a cartoon?
well,
Or,
now it's
or
I
does it
should
come
be
in the
doing
middle
it
of
every
the night and
day.
you have your tablet next to you and you wake up and you're like,
No, no, it's a matter of sitting at the desk and working at it. Although you do get seeds of ideas throughout the day sometimes. Um, they accept submissions on Tuesdays. For those of us who have been submitting for a while, there's other ways. If you're not in contact with them, there are ways to submit through an online submission process. I don't know much about it, but it's there. That's there. So we all submit on a Tuesday by noon, and by Friday they let us know if they want to buy one or not, and then you have an opportunity to redraw it if you want and submit it whenever. If it's timely, they might want the drawing quickly, but if not, you can do it next week. Or some people wait months. I wouldn't do that, but that's how it works. That's always been the case. So
Do
that's
you have
really
any sense of how many cartoons are submitted to them in a week by,
I there are numbers. The editor has mentioned numbers. I don't really know the numbers, but it's a
and you don't
lot.
want to
I'm
know the numbers?
competing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, I've been doing this for over 40 years and I'm still competing with new people. So it's really it's a lot of rejection, which you really don't quite get used to ever, but you're drawing a lot, so that's good. You know, the more you draw, hopefully the better you get. So
Are you worried about AI developing a sense of humor and submitting?
I am
Oh,
worried
hasn't
about
crossed your
AI. I don't
mind
think.
yet,
Oh
huh?
no, it has. In fact, there is a site out there that says it's an AI site that says create your own New Yorker cartoon,
Oh
which
boy.
is horrifying. But I don't think. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to know, Doug,
And do
whether
it in the
whether.
style of Liza Donnelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Philip, one of your D-Word members, Philip Shane and I were on a Zoom together, a private Zoom together, talking about this and trying to. He's so involved with AI and he's so involved, and I didn't know anything about it. And he was doing all kinds of work with a visual AI, trying to create a New Yorker cartoon based on my style, and it was very crude. This was about a year ago. I'm sure it's gotten better, but yeah, I am worried about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, on to a more pleasant subject.
Okay.
Um, so you talked about bringing Kathy on as co-director. How did, you know, did you know her work, or how did you go about picking her, and what was the process of co-directing like?
Oh, the whole process was thrilling for me, for one thing. It was fascinating. And collaborative work is not something I do very often. I work with editors sometimes for illustration jobs, but this kind of collaboration is a whole nother level. You all know that, but I hadn't realized it. But anyway, I was talking to Judith. Judith has been involved with the creative side of the project since the beginning. And I, a friend of mine who lives across the street from me here in the Hudson Valley invited me to a birthday party, and I went, and she said, "Oh, you have to meet my friend Kathy. She's a documentary filmmaker," and we met and briefly chatted, but then met on phone the following week, and Kathy and I, talked for like over an hour on the phone. In the meantime, I had looked at her work. I'd looked her work up and was blown away by the films that she's made, and and I knew from the phone conversation that we were compatible just by talking to her. Uh, and the other thing about her work is incredible. She's a director, but she's also a really good editor. I mean, a writing editor. How to construct um, the the film, the direction of the film, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The narrative of the film.
The
She's
arc,
really
maybe?
good at that. Hmm?
Yeah. The arc of the
Yeah,
story, perhaps?
yeah, the arc of the story, back and forth conversation. She's really open to helping me, and I know that I learned that she directed a film with Abigail Disney, so I was aware that she was open to working with somebody who'd never done it before. I
Yeah.
think Abby may have done one before that, but Kathy was comfortable and open to working with somebody who didn't know a lot about it. So um, I don't know that we hit it off right away, and she signed on pretty quickly, I think, to do it.
Were you, when you started working with the editor, were you,
Mhm.
either of you in the room with the editor? Was it done virtually? How did that
Mm. It,
collaboration work?
it was virtual, but the great thing also there is that she suggested that we bring on Andy Fredericks, who she's worked with for 30 plus years, and I decided that that was a good thing. That she
Mhm.
had a way of communicating with Andy that was seamless, it seemed to me, and they brought me in and were very patient with me, and so it was all virtual. Yeah, it was new to me, but so I didn't know anything different. But I'm hearing that it's quite different than what it used to be.
Yeah, well, we just did a whole thing on virtual editing about a month ago,
Uh,
as a kind of crowdsourced session that we did because we have so many directors and so many editors here. Um, so I'd be curious. I think a lot of people would be curious how that worked for you guys on it.
Mhm.
Did you look at all the footage first? Did you look at the footage all together? Um, how did, editors, it used to be that editors, you'd kind of get the transcripts ready, you'd watch it together, you'd mark your
Hmm.
in and out points and stuff, you talk it over. Um, Nowadays, it seems that editors are kind of making selects as they watch the footage and
Hmm.
logging, that way and not relying so much on transcripts. So what was the process like, and particularly from your vantage point as a first timer, where this was all new to you?
Hmm. Oh no, we relied heavily on transcripts. So the first thing we did was make transcripts of the footage, and then Kathy and I each went through them on our own and uh, highlighted the things that we thought were important and why in the notes on the side. It was Google Docs, I believe, and then Andy would start piecing it together and then show us clips. Uh, he was often talking with Kathy, the two of them, since they've had a long relationship, and then they'd show me something that they came up with. So it was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Um,
And Judith, were you part of that process too, or were you waiting until actual some stuff was put together in the edit room?
I would watch all the clips and cuts that Andy sent. I would sometimes look at the transcripts too, and mark things that I found interesting. So it was very collaborative. The whole team was really involved creatively, but there were times when it was like really getting into the, I think, weeds of the transcript. That I mean, there were times I felt like I'll stay back, but I definitely watched all of that and all the cuts, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was a
yeah,
process.
and
Yeah.
then towards the end, as we were working towards finishing the film, and it wasn't quite working for some reason. I mean, it was, but there was some things we just felt weren't right. Right. I went back and looked at all the footage of the Algonquin Roundtable again. I think I'd seen most of it, but not all of it. I relied on Andy to take out the stuff that he knew wouldn't work because it was as Judith says, complicated camera work.
Yeah. How many cameras
And
were there?
in the Algonquin, five or
I
four.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Five
at the
cameras.
Society of Illustrators, the one-on-ones had more cameras because there were cameras overhead and on the side. But
There were 10
towards the
our
end,
sorry.
sorry.
I was going to say our sound person at the Algonquin said he had never mic'd so many people in one shoot because there are 10 people
Yeah,
around the table, and it was
yeah.
very complicated for sound editing and everything later on.
I just want to say I went through that um, Algonquin footage and I found some stuff that I thought it was. I'd seen it before. I read it before. I thought this is such so great. So there was a lot of putting it together and making it, piecing it together, moving things around, and then going back into the archival footage again and saying, wait, this works here now, and bringing it back in. At the end, there's some stuff that we didn't have in for months, and then it came back. So
How
it was
much footage did you shoot for it altogether, do you think?
you
Did you
know
ever count?
I'm forgetting the number. It was there were all the one-on-one. There was the round table and a lot of kind of B-roll in New York City, exterior, some stuff in the studios. It wasn't a massive amount like some docs have because it was stylized and we knew what we wanted. But um, I don't remember the number actually of hours.
the cinematographers were really great. Um, Francesco and Marika, a married couple. I just want to shout out their work.
Yet
We've
another
worked with
married
Judith
couple on
before.
this.
Yeah, they were so wonderful and collaborative and generous with their time.
Um, at what point in the editing, I mean, I think you started out thinking it was a feature-length film. At what point did you suspect, realize, and decide it would be a short instead?
It was for the edit that we really were leaning into a short. I
Mhm.
think we left the possibility open, but it was during filming. It was filmed with a short in mind. Would would you agree, Liza?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I began to think that it was going to work really well as a short because of the stylized nature of it. I mean, we did end up going into some studios for quick shots, but if we made it a long feature, there would have to be perhaps more of that kind of um, footage of going into their studio, talking to them, and talking about their childhood and things like that. Which for what I personally wanted to do with this film was not as crucial. Uh, so that's why it became a short, very very comfortably, I think.
Wait a second. Let me get into what you just said there.
Okay.
What you wanted about the film wasn't as crucial. As crucial as what? Being you,
Say it again. I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
maybe I misheard you, but you were saying what you
Okay.
wanted wasn't as crucial. Um,
What what I wanted.
in terms of whether it's a feature or short, wasn't
Mhm.
crucial to you.
No, what I found, what I thought was really the heart of the film was women's creativity,
Hmm.
and watching them draw and hearing them talk about being creative and ideas, and they do get into their some of their personal issues in the film by talking about them, but that's what I mean. That worked really well for a stylized short, I thought. 'Cause if you made it a feature, then you need. I mean, maybe we could have made a feature with all of that, just more of that. But I don't know. Kathy and I talked about it. Like, if we make it a feature, maybe we'd have to go and spend like hours in their studio and interviewing them and talking to their friends and talking to experts in the field, things like that. So um, we just decided a short was a good thing. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, are
Mhm.
there scenes that you're disappointed didn't get in there?
Oh, lots of exchanges that we're
Hmm.
disappointed that aren't in there. Yeah, yeah.
But it's hard because it's either, it goes from, it's another 35 minutes you're adding on at least,
Hmm.
so it sounds like it could have been a great hour-long film maybe, and, where does that go? Um,
True.
so when did you realize you were finished? Did you have an end to it in mind, or is somewhere in the editing you said, "Oh, that's the ending"?
Do you remember, Judith? We did have some deadlines there that we needed to meet at the end.
At some point, we decided to go for a fall festival last year. But I think the structure and the film was there. It's not like we rushed for that. There was a lot at the end of just like honing and fine tuning. We got some great feedback from some colleagues who were really generous with ideas. But I think we had. Um, I think it wasn't like the kind of film where it's like how, what's the end. It didn't have like a narrative arc per se. It's as Liza was saying, it was a stylized short. We had the Algonquin, we had Society of Illustrators. Um, the exact ending we did have to figure out, like you always do, but I don't think it was um, like we needed something to happen. It wasn't the kind of film that relied on that. So I think we just really worked at the end and pushed and got it to a place that we all felt really good about.
Hmm.
Liza, when we talked at the beginning, you were wrestling with the idea of it being a personal documentary and how much am I in it and am I on the camera or behind the camera? Are you okay with just how much you are on camera? When you see the film, are you okay seeing yourself up there?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm finally comfortable with it, and I think Kathy and Judith were really good at, and some of the producers really good at helping figure that out. Less is more. I'm just the guide. It's not. I start the movie, and it's kind of about my quest, but I'm just the guide. So that was the uh, guiding principle, right, Judith?
Yeah, I think that's how it's exactly it. Eventually, we thought of Liza as a guide into this world, um, and like you said, how you used to draw with your daughters, like we just thought we really loved this concept of Liza drawing with her colleagues. What kind of conversations came out during the process of like while you're drawing, while you're drinking wine, whatever it is, the conversation that flows, the way, cartoonists kind of banter with each other. We wanted to capture that. Um, so it was nice. So Liza, being on camera and kind of starting those conversations was, I think, a really interesting way to do it, and I think it worked really
Yeah.
well.
No, I love seeing them doodling away, and then you see the doodles filling up and filling up and filling up as the
Yeah,
conversation goes
yeah.
on. I
They were
thought
very
that was,
generous, the cartoonists. They were very
yeah,
generous with. They knew what they were being asked to do, and or not we didn't tell them to do anything, but
yeah.
they were great.
Liza, you just referenced your quest. You said the word quest. What did you see as your quest in the film?
Oh, um,
Because a lot of people are making quest films, out there. So,
right. Well, I had to sort of dig through to find that answer. Women's creativity, I said that before, but women's voices. So my idea for this film was to uh, get people to realize, and you see at the end, that cartoons are about humor and they're designed to make people laugh, but so much of cartoons are about people's lives. So much we draw, even if we don't talk about it specifically, the things we draw are about our lives. And for centuries, women's lives have not been um, depicted in
yeah,
literature and cartooning and other things in art. So my idea was to try to get at that and find out who these women were and are and what they were showing us about their lives and about their sense of humor
yeah,
and why that can be funny for everybody. It doesn't have to be just for women or just for men and you know that was sort of the quest to try to get that. I mean, I've done a lot of research and studying and reading and talking about it all and writing, but I wanted that idea to get out to the viewer that
yeah.
it's not just about the joke; it's about expressing yourself.
Yeah, well, I love the film so much because, I love films about artists and the artistic process. And
Uh-huh.
but it's getting at that through humor. And there's a lot of anger and even rage, in these women that they
Mm,
express through humor, which I
hmm.
think is such an interesting theme, to it, and a way to, I mean, it's what makes cartoons so effective, particularly the New Yorker cartoons, is they're really making a strong, often political point, but certainly a social commentary point through humor.
Yeah,
And it's so interesting because when you go back, sorry, to
no, go
interrupt
ahead.
you. And when I read your book, Liza, but when you go back 100 years, it's just fascinating to see how women's cartoons developed over 100 years and what they were talking about in their own lives, like then versus now. The kind of humor that was like 100 years ago, like no one gets now. Like, what are they talking about? And then some kind of humor that's just completely universal that we can all get now, like we have in the film, like a mansplaining cartoon, just from the
Drawn in
1920s that like we
1925.
can all
Yeah.
relate to. But also, things like you know uh, menstruation. No one talked about that back then. Now they do. You can talk about that. So just women's lives and visibility and being able to just um, I think yeah, like I think Emily Flakes is in the film. Like it just makes people feel less alone when they see their own lives um, reflected in cartoons or anywhere. So
I want to add to that too that the great thing about New Yorker cartoons is that they can be political or cultural commentary, but they don't necessarily hit you over the head with your opinion. They come at the idea sometimes quietly or indirectly, So it would be a different movie if we were doing it about political cartoonists. You know, this way, it's a dialogue. It's like cartoons help you talk about the subject and ease you into what it's like to be in menopause or whatever. You know, so it becomes more universal that way.
Liza, when you're conceiving a cartoon, are you thinking of the point you're trying to make with it, or the joke? Something about it that where the humor drives the issue, or does the issue drive the humor?
It's all of the above, Doug. I mean, it's like different ways at it. Like sometimes there'll be an issue that I want to do a drawing about. Like in the film, we show a cartoon of mine that was not in the New Yorker. Woman's a, a young girl's talking to her mother about the war on women, and that was a phrase in the news 8 years ago now. But I knew I wanted to use that in a cartoon. So there's sometimes things specifically I want to talk about, but other times cartoonists immerse themselves in culture and politics. Many of us, not everybody, and so it comes out indirectly sometimes what you're talking about. So.
Um, I'm just like when I
Why's
read
a
the
big sigh?
newspaper, when I read the newspaper, humor does not occur to me as the first thing when I'm,
No, not right now. No.
yeah.
And we
Uh,
tried. I'll say this about the end of the movie. In the middle of shooting this movie, we had a new president was elected, and it was a lot of discussion about how to approach the movie when Kamala didn't win and Donald Trump did. So um, I don't know if we want to get into that. We
well,
just
I'll
obviously
just ask
decided not to.
if she had won, would the film have been different, you think?
Not really. I mean, the question was whether we get more political in the film, even
Hmm.
though these women are not, many of them in the New Yorker are not overtly political, but we had to make a decision whether we wanted to be a timeless film, which I think we succeeded in doing, or something very specific about a political year, and we chose not to do that.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting because, all the attacks that have happened on humor in the last few months with old talk show hosts, certainly, but then, everybody, all journalists, including cartoonists and cartoon editors and New Yorkers, certainly, they have to be thinking about this now. And because, you know, if, fascists don't like humor. So how do you
Mm.
handle that, going forward? And we didn't really hit it. I think we weren't very direct with it in the film, but it certainly comes out in some of the cartoons you see.
Hmm.
So let's talk about how one gets a short out into the world. Aside from wanting to get it into, the best festivals you possibly could, um, and, ideally getting it some sort of partnership with the New Yorker. I don't know. Well, how early on did you have, something worked out with them that they might show it on their website? But what I'm getting at is what else has been your distribution strategy? Is there anything besides festivals en route to possibly being streamed?
The other piece is definitely kind of non-theatrical screenings. So Liza and I are working a lot now on that, because so many people want to, museums, there's galleries, there's historical societies. So beyond festivals, beyond streaming, people are interested in showing the film, having conversations. And as I said earlier, that length pairs really well with that. So with a post-screening conversation. So I would say the non-theatrical piece is a big part of it as well.
And you're handling that now, right,
Yeah,
Judith?
Liza and I are working on that together. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Liza, talk about the experience of being a first-time filmmaker, playing in front of audiences, having, festivals in a sense are your theatrical experience. What's that been like for you?
The festival experience. Oh, it's been great. The first we premiered in world premiere was in Woodstock Film Festival, and it was wonderful to hear the reaction to the cartoons, which were we haven't talked about that. The selection of the cartoons was really tricky,
Yeah.
um, but they we were successful. They got a lot of laughs, and different festivals had different degrees or different places they laughed. Some places there was always the same reaction. What else can I say? I just really enjoyed it, the whole process. I mean, the cartoons are a visual medium anyway, and I sometimes describe cartoons, a single panel cartoon, as a little stage with, dialogue and actors and set design and costume design and choreography. So I think films and cartoons are like cousins in a way. So it was fun for me to work with Kathy and Judith and other producers, or Natalie, I should say, work with them on how it would all come together. It was really fun. Not without a lot of sleepless nights, but it was fun.
I was going to say it was worth the sleepless nights and the
It
anxiety and
was.
stress
It
and
was to hear the
yeah,
laughter and make people
yeah,
really enjoy learning about these women and laughing at what they have to say. So,
yeah.
mhm.
So we're going to turn it over to questions from folks very soon, but so a couple of final questions from me, and a little bit more general in terms of lessons learned. Um, if you were to do it any differently, what might you do? Or were there any mistakes possibly that you made that things that you did that you wish you hadn't, or things that you could have done that you didn't do? There are a lot of questions there, but
Mm.
anyone, pick anyone.
Oh, I'll let you take this one, Liza.
Oh,
Or do you watch it, Liza, and go like, wow, that's perfect.
no, we didn't have no
We did
mistakes,
nothing
no
wrong.
regrets.
Um, Liza, is there like working with Kathy and working with Judith and others on the film? What are some things that stand out to you that, like, when you make your next film, you'll have taken with you from the experience of working with these, very experienced, accomplished
Wow,
filmmakers?
I don't know. Everything.
Or is it just a matter of confidence that you feel more confident in your own ability? As
I
you know,
mean,
even yeah, even recently when we talked earlier this week, and you said you still have trouble thinking of yourself as a filmmaker.
I know that I am because I've done it, but I'm trying to have the confidence to do another one, and I would love to try to do one directing myself, but I don't know if I'm ready yet. So, because I know how complicated it is. That's what I've come away with is how incredibly complicated it is and how collaborative it is. I've learned a lot about working with other people. Judith is really good at helping me craft emails that carefully uh, to make sure that I don't. I mean, I'm a careful person as it is, but I don't really know how to answer your question. But I'm working on my next idea, and I don't know if I'll do it by myself, but I'm entertaining that idea.
And
But I need to have somebody like Judith with me.
we all, yes, everybody does. Um, so Judith, a couple last questions for you. For people who are making shorts, um, what advice would you give in terms of, getting, they often say, well, what am I going to do with the short? Where can a short play? And what do you say to that? Aside from festivals, I mean, where is there a market for shorts these days? And aside, who are some of the streamers who are possibly picking them up?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I think on the one hand, there's always putting it out yourself and that is possible because you can as long as uh, you're willing to put in the work with the outreach and the getting it out there, I think it's possible for it to not get lost. But it's of course hard without a platform supporting you. Um, Netflix does some, but not very many. The New Yorker picks up a lot. I have a friend who just had his film on Rolling Stone, so a lot of the publications do it. Some have I think, some have closed down that were putting out shorts. There's the New York Times. Um,
Is
so
is the Guardian still doing it?
I think so.
Okay.
Huh.
That's a good question, actually. Um, so I think, but I think in terms of advice, I think I do believe that a film should be the length it should be, meaning like you want to make the right film, the right length for your film, for your subject. And um, so I don't, necessarily believe in squeezing something or dragging something out to fit a, like a running time. But at the same time, thinking ahead of time, like where it might end up can be helpful. Um, knowing that 40 minutes is the cutoff for shorts for most festivals and awards is good to know, I think, keeping that number in mind. An hour length was always like a good number for broadcast, but um, some of the broadcast options aren't as many anymore. So I think making the film the length it should be, but at some point when it feels, like you're shaping it and you know what you want it to be, then maybe starting to think about distribution and where you can show it and then keeping the 40 minutes in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also suggest that shorts have this potentially ideal for virtual screenings
Mhm.
because they're short and, particularly if they're mission driven, that there's vast potential to partner with organizations and hold virtual screenings with some of the people in your film, uh,
Mhm.
things like that. So I throw that out there to the filmmakers here. Um,
So virtual and in person.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and Judith, Liza's talked about what she plans to do from here, but you want to talk a little bit about the dozens of films you're working on currently. Is there anything you want to throw out there? Because
Um,
I think I can count four or five off the top of my head.
uh,
If you forget.
I'll just very briefly mention, but just finished up one called Maintenance Artist, also about a New York and artists. It's about the Marilater Manucles, the first uh, artist in residence of the New York Sanitation Department, directed by Toby Pearl Freilich. I was at Tribeca in 2025, and that's kind of making the rounds now, and it'll be making the rounds for the rest of this year. There's a new project directed by Shayna Feinberg that I'm really excited about Joan Darling, who is a TV director. She's 90 years old now. She directed a lot of classic TV like MASH and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and she taught at Sundance for 30 years, an acting workshop. And it's about her relationship, Shayna's relationship with her. So it's two directors, kind of their friendship and mentorship, and um, yeah, really excited about that project as well.
More women artists. Although you did do
Hmm.
one cropped about a male artist, James Hamilton, the photographer.
Yes,
Uh,
I love
and
him.
that was the other what I was saying. How there's all these films about New York. That was another recent film called Uncropped about the legendary Village Voice photographer James Hamilton.
and the booksellers, which was about
New York bookseller, rare booksellers.
All three of those films were perfect in for you know connections to our film, Women Laughing, because they were archival and they were about New York and about artists. So it was great.
Yeah.
Judith's experience with
So I think you
archival
why
material.
yeah. I
yeah.
just want to add that Judith does consulting as well. She's a consulting producer on a film I'm producing, My Omaha, and she's been, with a first-time filmmaker, Nick Bollier, and You've been really invaluable on that. So just a
Thank
side
you.
note, you might want to put your contact info into the chat, both of you, but do, you are still available for consults, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
You're quite welcome. 10%, remember, right? All right. Now I get to kick back, drink some coffee while everybody asks questions. If you have a question, use the raised hand function like Megan, Mark, and Mitch, and Joanne and Mark are doing. And Connie, don't you want to say something? You were at the beginning, come on, you were raving about this. So put your hand up. Meg, you are first up.
Yeah, so I'm new to the D word and I'm relatively new to producing. I've got 2 feature films going, but I was just so impressed. I've been a curator for 25 years working in museums and galleries, and just how you got all of these cartoonists to be comfortable. And I know your peers, but the idea of having them draw was just, I'm sure, did that help break the ice and get some of these kind of very private people to open up?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Algonquin, as soon as we enter the Algonquin, they're drawing immediately. I think for them,
Mhm.
it's also a comfort thing. They're nervous, so they draw. But yeah, I mean, I know most of them pretty well over the
Mhm.
years, and I know their work very well. And so I had a off to the side on the floor. I had a bunch of questions that I knew for each individual cartoonist. I created a list of questions with Kathy and Judith's help to sort of. I didn't want it to be a formal interview. I wanted it to be a friendly, like, one-on-one with them, and I
Had
was
you
hoping that
done,
they would draw.
oh,
Hmm?
had you
No, go
done the
ahead.
one-on-ones before you did the group?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
Didn't we?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So they kind of had a sense, they knew what they were walking into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was very interesting seeing the way the cartoonist, just immediately picked up something and started drawing. And I definitely think it put them at ease in an interview situation. And also because, most of them knew Liza, so I think that was really helpful too.
Yeah. And Judith, you were instrumental in getting the Algonquin, right, for the location?
I'd worked with the manager of the Algonquin on the film Uncropped I mentioned. We actually shot something there that didn't end up in the film, but they were like so just lovely and helpful. So yeah, it seemed like a really good location for this film. There's the Algonquin Round Table, and we approached them, and they were just so generous with the space and
Yeah.
time, and they've been
And
And they're
so
open
would
to all
the
really
United
documentary.
Illustrated.
They're open to all documentary filmmakers approaching them about locations, right?
And I have to say, the Society of Illustrators, I have to give them a shout out. If you don't know that place, it's a really, really lovely townhouse on East 63rd Street. And they also gave us all the time and the space for free to be there. So they're
They're
wonderful.
amazing. Yeah.
The art of asking. Mark, you're up.
Thank you for coming out to the D Word. I really enjoyed your film. I really thought the round table was brilliant in getting them all together and just hanging out, doing their thing. And then you went to the one on ones. My question is, I think I only saw 4 or 5 of the artists in the one on ones. How did you make that decision of who was going to get cut out? Because that's a real sensitive thing when you have friends in a group like that and they don't make the cut.
Question. The one-on-ones were decided first. We didn't even know we were going to do the Algonquin for a while. So the 5 women we chose for the one-on-ones were carefully chosen for a number of reasons. And I know a lot of the women cartoonists. And Kathy and I did interview some other ones. Um, and it was hard, but I wanted to have a spread of voices, different kinds of voices in terms of age and gender and race. So that's was a lot of the um, parameters of who to choose. So and then we went when we did the roundtable, we wanted more women. So I approached a couple of women that I knew that would be really interested in doing it and good on camera and game. So that's how that happened. It was not easy, but there are other women who are in the film by represented by their work. So that was nice to be able to do that too.
Thank you, Mark. Um, I've been saving my most important question for now. What kind of red wine did you serve? It was only red wine available. Did you offer white wine?
I think we did offer, didn't we? What there
I
was
think
white
we
there.
did.
I mean, it was the Algonquin's choice, so we didn't.
Ah,
I didn't
okay.
Yeah,
select it.
the
Or
one
did we
they
get the
gave
wine
us
from somebody else? I forget.
They seem very happy
for
with
them.
it.
Yeah.
Mitch, you're up.
Hi, Judith and Liza. It's a remarkable gem of a film. Congratulations. It's really beautiful, beautifully paced, beautifully examined in every way, and I love the way it explores the art. I have two questions. Liza, I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about what the day-to-day co-directing practicalities were like, how you and Kathy engaged each other in both production and post-production, and how that was realized, in the final cut. And also, I love that everyone is always creating in the film. That is just joy to watch them create. I was wondering if there was more interaction about those creations, as you spoke, as the cartoonists spoke amongst each other, and looking at each other's work and commenting, or whatever, what the dialogue was about the work itself that they were doodling or sketching or creating.
Second one first. Yes, there was. There was footage that we didn't use, right, Judith? That was between me or me and another cartoonist, like Amy Wong, talking about how she draws. We also did, and then I'm trying to remember. And then also there was footage talking about our mothers and children, raising children. So some good stuff didn't make it into the film that was sometimes related to what we were drawing, but not often. Yeah.
A lot of funny
And
banter. Yeah, they think they were always commenting on each other's like cartoons, and they were very funny. I was cracking up the whole time.
Okay,
um,
great.
Oh,
huh?
was there part
Did you
one?
want to get at the nature of the co-directing that Mitch was asking about
Yeah.
on a day-to-day
Constant,
basis?
constant talking. I mean, Kathy and I set up at least one Zoom a week, depending on need and schedule, and a lot of phone conversations, a lot of back and forth on Google Docs. So it was just constant. And then Judith would come in too and talk about what was
And
being,
Natalie. Yeah.
and Natalie talk about what was being discussed in the Google Docs. A lot of Google Doc conversation. Then when it got too thick with the Google Docs, we said, okay, let's stop and have a Zoom because there's just too many comments on one particular spot. So we then resort to Zoom. Not a lot of face to face though, I don't think, right?
No, I would say witnessing it, it was it's interesting to I was the second time I've worked with two directors, and it's a really interesting process. Both times it was really good, but it has its own challenges, and I would say Liza and Kathy, one of the things that was just so great is they were just so like respectful of each other's ideas and opinions, and really tried to work with each other in a great way. So that was very nice to witness.
Joanne, welcome.
Yeah, Liza and Judith, I really liked the film. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Um, uh, did you I have two things to say. First of all, about distribution. Are you thinking of doing any educational distribution? Because I think this would be a film that would be very good for little girls to see, so they can see what they can do as a career. They may never have thought about that before, but they could look at ladies doing it and say, hey, I could do that too. And my question is, when you were showing the film to audiences, Liza, what was the question you got that you didn't expect?
I'll answer the educational part while you're thinking about that. I'll give you a minute to think about that. Thank you. That's a great question about educational. We definitely want to make it available for educational. We're talking to the New Yorker, and we just have to figure out, just from a contractual point of view, what's possible. But one way or the other, we are going to make it available, because I agree that having that it is a great film for girls to see. And there's some talk about that in the film, and a lot of that maybe didn't make it in. But I think all the cartoonists had, there was something that they when they were children that allowed them to kind of think that they could do this when they grew up. So we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, if she can see it, she can be it, right?
Yeah.
And, there's an international baccalaureate teaching method that is international. And I've been, over the past 10 years, I've been getting emails from mostly young women to ask me questions about my cartoons. What I found out was that these teachers in English departments were using my cartoons to talk about feminist issues with their classes. And that's just so rewarding to hear that, and that because it's a great way to get at subjects without being threatening or difficult.
And Liza, have you had time to think of the most surprising question you heard, or was Joanne's question the most surprising question you've heard?
I'm sorry, Joanne, I can't think of anything. Do you think of anything, Judith, that we were asked that was?
That left Liza speechless.
It's a really good question. I can't off the top of my head.
I asked that because once when I was screening my film, a woman asked me if I thought my film was dangerous.
Mm.
And I said, I don't think so. And she said, well, before I saw it, I thought maybe this was going to be a dangerous film. And now that I've seen it, I realize it's not. So that was the question that surprised me.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Joanne. Mark, you're up.
Hi, ladies. Great film. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you've hit all your goals, or what you set out to do, for sure. But Liza, you said you had many sleepless nights. Between the shooting and the editing, what caused you the most sleepless nights?
I've forgotten. No, it's like childbirth, you forget, right? I guess creative decisions, trying to figure out how to discuss with team members if you have a difference of opinion about a creative choice. I think that was it, really. And I can't give a specific example. It was just, the, you know, trying to continue to be somebody who works well with others, and respectful, as Judith says, respectful from everybody's opinion. There's several opinions in the room, and trying to figure out how to navigate that, and realize that I don't have the right answers, obviously. So I want to mention one thing, Doug, that we haven't talked about, is the music, and that caused some difficulties at times, but the music was amazing, and also an important part of this film. The composer we used was Catherine Bostic, who's done documentaries before, but she's also a jazz musician in her own, in her other work, a composer and performer. But amazing how Andy Fredericks would merge and pace the music, whether it's Catherine's music or stuff that he found online, to work with the cartoons and with the dialogue. Quite remarkable.
You just mentioned it caused problems at times. What problems did it cause?
Just opinions about taste of music, or whether it worked or not.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I think you had some specific ideas before we started about what you didn't want, and I think, and then Catherine really did some beautiful work and really kind of listened to what you wanted. And yeah, I don't really remember problems. It's just always like sometimes it's just hard to. I think with our film with the cartoons, yeah, just pacing and music. I don't know if it was more challenging than other films, but yeah, it was.
It's really hard to know just how long to keep a cartoon on and how fast people can read them and take them in. And you're also kind of
Yeah.
allowing for laughs, maybe, and it's interesting.
And also finding cartoons that could be read fairly quickly and the idea gotten fairly quickly, but and also an idea that might be somewhat understandable by the majority of people watching the film. It
Yeah.
was a lot of good cartoons were left out because they were either too long caption or too difficult to understand immediately. So,
And that was so it's not really related to your question, but I'll just bring it up because I think it's interesting. We had a lot of conversations about like how to show the cartoons, yeah, in terms of how long to hold them, but also, they're single panel cartoons. They're essentially like a flat square. And we're putting them into a kind of cinematic medium, and we wanted to respect the original form, give people time to absorb them, and also keep the film kind of moving and dynamic. So that was just another kind of big creative choice that had to be made, how much animation to use or not. And we ended up, landing on what you see, which is just, I think, a little animation that adds fun little elements. So yeah.
by Matt Eller, who was
Matt Eller, great graphic designer.
Connie, you were just spotlighted. You went off, so we're going to welcome you back to the spotlight.
Oh, geez, you're putting me on the spotlight. Okay. So, first of all, Liza, your audio is down quite a bit. I don't know if it's from you or master control or what. So, I was so entertained by this film. I watched it before we came on here. The raucous laughter in my office alone was the biggest applause you could get. Such a clean design with this, and poignant and serious subjects, and yet I'm laughing like a hyena. And I really want to acknowledge the bravery of a first-time filmmaker. I can't even remember what that was like, to tell you the truth. It seems like it's like that every time I start a film. But that was real bravery on Liza's part, with a team that really created such a polished, well done, well-paced film. And the score, I thought the score was excellent. One cartoon I just want to say before my question that really stuck with me. I mean, I loved all of them, but there's just one that stuck with me. There's a woman, she's cooking on the stove. She's got this thing with a baby hanging in. She's got another kid hanging on her leg, and there's a dog. And there's a guy, apparently the father in this family, on the other side of the stove, and the belly's out, and he's all grizzly, and he says to her, he says, "You used to be so much more spontaneous." I'm telling you, I almost fell on the floor.
You're not the woman I married.
That's it. You're not the woman I married. I'm sorry. Well, okay.
Same idea. Yeah.
Got the point, right?
Liana thinks good at getting. She gets at the heart of it. Yeah, Liana. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's great. So my questions are timeline questions. And I know you discussed this, but I'm looking at the actual in and out points. At what point in your whole timeline did Judith come on board? Was it in pre-production or production, already shooting, or whatever? How long was your edit? How many months did you spend in the edit room? And where are you now in distribution?
Was the first question, when did Judith come on? Is that?
Yeah, when did Judith come on board as a producer? At what point were you in pre-production? Had you been shooting, or?
Yeah, pre-production.
It was the very beginning. Doug introduced us, and yeah, Liza had been thinking about the film for, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but for many, many years. And when we were introduced, that's when we kind of really just started pre-production, and then yeah, so the beginning.
Judith, do you want to tell the story about the other time we met
Oh
in
yeah.
California?
Very quickly, Liza and I, we had our first coffee the beginning of 2023, and I was heading off like in a few weeks to the Oscars with the Martha Mitchell Effect, which was very exciting. And then I told Liza that, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to be there," because she, I guess at the time, was the only cartoonist who'd ever been granted access to the red carpet to live draw it. So I guess it was the next time I saw you, I was like, it was as if that whole experience wasn't surreal enough. I was walking down with my amazing team, directors Anne Albergue and Deborah McClutchy, co-director Deborah McClutchy, and producer Beth Levison. The four of us are walking down, and I hear our name being called, my name being called, and there's Liza, and she drew us on the red carpet, and it was very exciting. And the funny thing about that, I'll just add, is that if people hear your film is nominated for an Oscar, they're like, "Wow, it's amazing," but they hear that New Yorker cartoonist Liza Donnelly drew you as a cartoon, that really blows their mind. That's like very exciting. So that's like the impact that the New Yorker has and New Yorker cartoons have. So that was great.
We have four more hands up, so that will be the end of the questioning, and try and make. We're getting towards the end of our session. Are you guys, Judith and Liza, are you okay staying a few more minutes, or do you have? Okay, but try and be concise with your questions if you could. Joe, you are up.
And just one technical thing, Liza, some people have noted your audio has gotten a bit low, so I don't know if there's a way to be just a little bit closer to it or anything to remedy that. Thank you.
Or if anything's been covered, maybe.
I don't know. Is there? All right.
You can shout. You just shout, Liza.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. You're up.
Liza and Judith, thank you so much for being with us. This is great, and I really enjoyed the film. My question was about the roundtable conversation, and also the individual ones, but mostly the roundtable. I was wondering if you had a strategy to drive that conversation, or did you just sort of roll the cameras and hope for the best?
We did have a strategy. We did. I don't know if you see it in the film, but I printed out the historical women cartoonists, some of their drawings on boards, and passed them around, hoping that it would make the women talk about the past women, making a connection between the generations. It didn't really work out. I mean, they just looked at them and laughed and had a good time. But I had other questions in line. I don't remember. I had my notes there. I wasn't drawing at all. I was looking at my notes. So yeah, it was freewheeling on some level, but also slightly structured.
The power of wine.
We always talked about it as, yeah, like Liza would provide the structure if it was needed or just to get things going, but we were going to try to be open to just letting things flow.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Adelaide.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. This has been I feel like I've learned so much just sitting here and listening to you guys. I have my co-director and co-producer here as well, Araceli. And we're working on our first film as well. And I feel like it kind of has the same like starting trajectory and everything as you guys have had. And it was really interesting to hear you talk about the round table because we're trying to set up a scene in a similar fashion. And we are also, working with like a really tight budget. So I wondered in terms of the logistics of that, like one, how long did you guys actually film for? Was my first question. And then also in terms of the logistics of camera placement and all of that, did you leave that up to your crew or was that kind of something that you designed stylistically as the director?
Left that up to the cinematographers, I believe, and Kathy perhaps, because I had no experience, so they made those choices, and Judith was involved also. But I remember as a first-time filmmaker, I was like, when Judith said, she had the access to the Algonquin, and they said yes, we were like, I thought, absolutely, let's do that. No problem. We should really do that. That'll be fun. But Kathy was much more concerned because she knew how difficult it was going to be with the miking and the cameras and the conversation, but she finally agreed to do it, and we did it. So I think it turns out that it worked really well.
And I would say, this on a very practical, technical level, if you can, find cinematographers that maybe have their own gear, so you don't have to worry about a lot of, expensive rentals, who are willing to kind of hopefully like be generous and bring their own gear, and that helps a lot. If you're thinking of something with like multi cameras, and you might, especially if you don't know how long it's going to go, and rentals can be expensive. So that's just one small thing to think about. And I think your other question was how long. I think we had the place for the whole day, and I don't know, maybe we were there for like 7 hours or something.
Wow.
Liza, yeah. We can't hear you.
I don't think the women were there that long, but we were there.
Yeah. The women were not there that long. They were, a couple, 2-3 hours, but there was a lot of setup with all the cameras and
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sandy.
Yes, thanks, Doug. So I wanted to ask whether you're including DVD availability in your distribution plans, because I really believe that DVDs are still important as a way for people to watch movies. And for example, in smaller communities that have smaller bandwidth, and in smaller groups of people, like just to choose to have a DVD, as well as home sales, instead of only relying on streaming, because I think the focus so much on streaming now is actually undermining the availability of documentary films to reach more people. And even a neighbor down the road, a young woman, she told me that her latest computer now doesn't even have a DVD drawer in the computer. So why is technology actually eliminating that option, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wondered what your thoughts were about DVDs.
We actually don't have that in the plan at the moment. But it's a good point. I know there are people that still prefer to watch DVDs. I happen to love physical media in general. But I mean, I think we'll take into account what you said and think and see if there's a way to do it. But we don't have that plan at the moment.
It's a great point, I think.
Yeah. I bet you have a lot of material for DVD extras.
Oh, yeah.
Anais, is that how you pronounce it?
No, on ice.
I know. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's good. It's all good. Thank you for everything. I have 2 budget questions. One, what was your total budget? My second part of the question is how much was spent on the edit specifically, and how many editing days did you have, or months, or whatever?
I think the edit was about 5 months, but it wasn't necessarily. We took some breaks to like stop and think and watch. So it wasn't a consecutive 5 months, but it was about that. Those were the amount of days we had. Are we sharing budgets, Liza? We don't. Yeah, I actually haven't been asked that question before, but I would say it's not. It wasn't. Some shorts can be made fairly inexpensively because whether they're just shot, with one camera or out on the street. In this case, as you heard, we had a lot of cameras and we had a lot of stylization. So, I mean, the good news is we didn't have to travel much. We were here, but it wasn't inexpensive short, but it was I don't know. Do you want to show the budget, Labs?
I thought you'd gotten to the finish line without budget.
I also want to say, Kathy said that our that our film was as complicated and as difficult as a feature. It was so intense, and I
Yeah.
think also the budget was close to.
Well, no, it was about half a feature, but it was there was a lot of elements that made it difficult, like a feature, and it took a little longer as well. So yeah.
Safe to say it was under $2 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way under.
Okay. I think that's it for, I just want to ask one last thing. Is there anything you want to say that you didn't about the film, about the process, before we head off into the sunset? Any final words of wisdom for us?
I want to say that I was so what's the word? I was so happy, for want of a better word, about the documentary film community being so open to talking to me and helping me out. And I feel like maybe you guys are, and I'm a part of it now, are much like cartoonists. We're not in it for the money. We're in it because we want to say something. And I loved getting to know so many filmmakers over this time. So that was great.
Yeah. The doc community is great. The D-Word's amazing. Yeah, I would say words of wisdom, have a great team. Obviously, everyone's trying to have a good team, but when you have a team that really clicks and everyone respects each other, and it's really a great experience.
Yeah, and do a lot of talking, right? Talk all the
Yeah,
time.
I know. Like you become family after talking every day for a few years. It's yeah.
Well, we're done talking. Thank you both so much for being here, and thank you for the film. It's just such a great film, and really kind of inspiring for anybody who loves art and is in it for the art as well. So much appreciated.